feel it in the wind. It will crush.
Everything I've said is true. It's real.
Dinosaur fossils? I'd like to put those here to test our faith.
A damn lie. I saw them with my own eye.
Did IQs just drop sharply while I was away?
We did illusions, man. None of it is true.
Anointed! This is mass madness, you maniacs! In God's name, you people are the real thing. We are the illusion.
Welcome back to the Deep Share podcast. This is an episode born out of rage, basically. And we have a really fun group here tonight. We've got Drew Missen. How's it going, Drew?
Good, mate, good. Is it born out of rage or pure idiocracy? I think that's where it comes from on my end.
I think rage due to the idiocracy witnessed.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's the catalyst. Thank you.
Brandy, nice to see you again, as always. Thank you for being here.
Problem.
How are you? How you been?
I've been good. I've been real good.
Yeah. I mean, we keep in touch, obviously. We talk, we have our chat going as always, kind of hitting on random weird shit all the time. It's good to have you here. It's been a while since we've gotten to talk some shit, so this will be fun. Mr. Chris from Rantcast, what's up, brother? Nice to have you back here.
Yeah, it's nice to be back.
Dude, 2 in the past few weeks. This is great. We've been talking a lot lately. This is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Glad to have you here. And, I've been wanting to have my buddy Seth from VBDC that I talk to on Sync Tank and Andreas's channel often, or Woo Wednesday, technically. Seth, how's it going, man? Nice to have you here. Or he might have gone off the reservation for now. I'm not sure, but I'm sure he'll be back. But anyway, we're here. Mainly, this was just an idea that came about organically in our chat with Brandy and Drew. And we were talking about, there he is. Hey, Seth, how's it going, man?
I'm great. Thank you.
How is the weather out there in Cali treating you?
It's our winter, so it's about, goes down to about 45 at night or 40 at the lowest. So it's very moderate and getting a little rain, which is good.
Not too bad. That's good. You got some new music out recently too, right?
My most recent single is called Stay Cool. The music video is up on my YouTube channel, and got a full album that I'm planning to release this spring and more music videos and stuff. So stay tuned for that.
Hell yeah, man. Awesome. So I was just basically saying to everybody that this was born out of rage, a random moment, but I mean, it's kind of been growing in me for a while. And my main concern for a long time has been like, how bold do I want to be, or how brutally honest, and can that be too rude or too mean? What are all these walls that I was kind of putting up around myself, and how do I want to censor my own, raw feelings about certain topics in the community and things like that? And, is it worth pissing people off and losing followers to go up against prominent concepts that are being passed around like candy? And it kind of just came to a head last week. I saw a post, and I will say this, I didn't mean to individually and specifically call anybody out. It was an accident. I think I accidentally left in the image I cropped the title or the username of the podcaster that was posting it. And it wasn't about calling anybody out in particular. But since that did happen, oh well, it's out there, it's that I can no longer just randomly and generally have people on my show or desire to go on other shows where we don't cross the same lines, or we don't, have the same outlooks. I mean, it doesn't have to be an echo chamber by any means, but there's like certain parameters that like, I guess I'm realizing I don't necessarily have to jive with if I don't want to. And instead of just being the everything show that I feel like so many shows become, if that makes any sense. So I'm kind of rambling. I apologize. just trying to get to the point here that it seems to me there's a lot of grifting, fear porn, and just desperate for click behavior going on in this community. And, you know, maybe I'm just a crotch. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, like, I'll do troll shit and I'll put up clickbait type shit as like, yeah, I troll, but like running stuff as like real, that's what the problem was.
That's
like,
the difference. So
running
yeah,
it as it's real. Like, oh, we've got to, everybody in because the main thing is the Florida thing. The alien Florida thing. That's what kind of set it off. I was still pissed about the Las Vegas alien thing.
Absolutely. That's still a point of contention.
And if anybody wants to hear what I had to say about it, you can go listen to our show last Tuesday when I ran Ryan Christian, the last American vagabond off because I was ranting about this whole thing and how these guys, these influencers, it seems like the ones on Twitter that paid for these blue checks and have became these influencers, and I'm not naming anybody specifically in the blue check type talk, but when trying to interact with these people, I see that they only interact with blue check marks and then anybody that has a following less than 1,000.
Interesting.
Right. So then when they're throwing around this shit that these aliens, you know, people are believing the media when they're telling you that it was just why was all these cops with 4 teenagers? It was portals, and now it's fucking demons and shit like that. Like
the thing that got me, Chris, the thing that got me, Chris, is that these are larger, prominent shows which early on as a content consumer, someone who listened to podcasts before starting my own, I had a lot of respect for because they put the due diligence in, they'd research things, they'd have that level of discernment, they'd present things, and objectively they'd say, this could be true, but this is a few other things that it could be. This is what they used to do. Now it's gone into a bit more of an infotainment type of a space where the information doesn't have to be true for infotainment. It's based for clicks. And when there's stories like the Miami alien or the Las Vegas alien, shit that's verifiably false and takes less than 10 seconds to search, that's a big issue for me because then it puts people who I used to see do really good content and great work are half-assing it. And we claim ourselves to be the air quotes truther community, but it doesn't seem like people are actually putting out the truth half the time now. They're putting out content for content's sake.
Well, not only for clicks,
go ahead.
But also, I would like to try to describe the phenomenon more specifically is that the algorithm is leading the way, meaning that the most popular influencers check the what's trending on X, and they whatever it is, aliens for the alien people, you know, a politician for the political people, and so that's the 4 a.m. talking points that everyone used to complain about mainstream media getting is now just being delivered by the algorithm. So you can create your own content that it isn't as easily monetizable, and then you can also for fun cover what's trending like aliens or whatever it is. And last week I was disappointed in Clint Russell, who's just like, you know, a libertarian thinker guy that's pretty serious. Like, you know, I take him as a pretty serious and helpful, useful guy just by being honest. And, you know, I seen him covering the Miami aliens thing, and I was kind of like, I'm a little disappointed.
Clint was covering the Miami
show, but I also like to have fun. I was like, yeah, but when you're having fun, you're signal boosting the distracting noise. It's kind of interfering with the important conversation. So I think there's a huge temptation. It's like I cover the, you know, people tell themselves, I get to make some money too. Why can't I make a little money too while I'm out here telling the truth and doing my thing? But that's kind of the signal that gets boosted because it's aligned with the algorithmic trending tab.
And then, yeah, I mean, it's fun to like talk about this. I'm just me personally. I'm not into aliens and ghosts and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, these accounts that run it as like it's truth. And now the TMZ fucking thing dropped on Tubi. And that's what that jellyfish video is coming from.
Right, exactly.
And here's what's crazy about that.
So Jeremy Haircut Corbell is going nuts about it.
Oh my God.
And that video, you've seen the close-up where it's a 3D analysis, right? This is a 3D analysis. Well, I turned on Tubi the other night, and there it is, TMZ, aliens. So Tubi's going to start charging. Now I can't fucking... because it's such a big hit, you know, and then you're watching it. Here comes George Knapp, which I just got done last week on AM Wake Up saying it's funny. And I think my show on last Sunday, not this past Sunday, but the one before, where I took one of the clips from local Vegas and showed that with David Grush and how the local Vegas went to debunk their alien, right? Or not debunk it, but it was going around that it's conspiracy, that they're trying to cover up the David Grush, because that's when David Grush was coming out.
Mm-hmm.
So they start going step by step, and they get to a spot where there's a round circle in the driveway of Angel. Angel, the alien YouTuber who found the alien in the backyard.
Right.
So there's a round spot in the gravel, and George goes, and Google sleuths pointed out that that's 2 years old, that it was on Google, or it should have been stopped.
Done.
Nope. George keeps going with it to lead into, hey, what the story is that we were covering up the release from David Grush, and I talked to David Grush a while ago. He seemed like the real deal. He's got all these dude, George Knapp set that shit up, man. That fucking thing fell in George Knapp and that fucking Angel kid. I bet there's a connection there where they set that whole fucking thing up and ran wild with it. Once I found out, I didn't know, because I'm not an alien person. I didn't know fucking George Knapp is the guy.
Oh,
he's
a guy.
David Grush.
Yeah, dude.
He's
absolutely.
He's like a handler, and they're losing money and audience with Lou, because Lou's a fucking dickhead who runs his mouth too damn much. And they were like, look, we gotta bring in some new players. And so they audition them and they throw them out there. And out of that is born these fucking idiots. And then Grush with his, beady little eye saying, I'm serious. If
I've never seen anything.
You're right. If you were a real whistleblower, you wouldn't be up here saying anything. You'd be dead like the other ones.
Absolutely.
Well, just the fact of when that first came out was funny, because everybody's running with that too, going, oh my God, here's proof. Here's a whistleblower. Right in the fucking interview, he says, although David Grush has never seen anything with his own eyes, he has read enough of Project, I can't remember I think it was Project was like the name. He's read enough reports and talked to enough witnesses that he is convinced they are real. And I put that on repeat. He is convinced they are real. And then it clicks into George Knapp going, I talked to David Grush one time. No, you didn't, you fucking asshole. Like, you were pushing to get him in front of Congress at that time. Like, what are you talking about? You lying motherfucker.
Oh yeah, and it also came out that George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell were the two first people that he interacted with like a year prior to all of this going on anyway, at a UFO convention.
And George Knapp and Jeremy were pushing Congress to get David Grush in front of them. George Knapp set up the fucking interview with that fucking British guy. I can almost fucking guarantee it. I'll put the $1 that I don't have right now on that too. I'll put two $1 bills that I'll find eventually somewhere on both things. Right?
So this is the thing that I wouldn't be so much annoyed if they just openly came out and said it's purely entertainment. This is for entertainment purposes. It's the likes of a Monster Quest or an Ancient Aliens, one of those types of spheres. But
we're talking about the podcasters. Who
latch onto this type of stuff. They latch onto it. They've got the ability to discern it and pull apart the bullshit from the truth in there. Because I've seen them do it multiple times.
You'd think. Yeah, we used to see it all the time.
If you've got a platform and you want to build the platform on entertainment purposes, fine, go for it. I'm more than happy for you to get popular and make money off that, because you know what? I like listening to the occasional Bigfoot story.
Oh yeah, well,
it's
we
fun.
can get into that.
It's entertaining. But if you continue to push something that's true, that's been disproven a week in advance, like Chris's debunk that he put out was fantastic, and then people keep running with this whole Miami story is real, and here's the reasons why, and the point of evidence they use is a TikTok of a guy who came out later on to say it's complete bullshit
because it wasn't on TikTok.
Exactly.
That's the craziest part about the Miami thing, dude. It went 4 days, and then some guy on TikTok floating in front of the picture of the LA whatever battle Battle of Los Angeles, you know, got the fucking spotlights in the space on the space alien. He's floating. You know how they float in front of it?
Yep.
And he's like, hey, did you all know some shit went down in Miami? And it's not on TikTok, so it's fucking something, dude. And then boom, shit explodes. And then there's this one guy on there going, yeah, I was down there, dog. And like, there were these things. And then he starts literally explaining and describing Endermen. Is that that's what they are in Minecraft, right? Endermen, the fucking tall
black
things.
things.
Yeah, and they're like, oh. And then they'll fucking just show up behind you, and then you'll move, and then you'll turn around, they'll show up. That's exactly what he was saying. He goes, we couldn't touch them, we could see them, but we'd try to get away from them, and then we turn around, they're right there. That's an Enderman. That's a goddamn Minecraft Enderman.
What was even more evidence of it is that you have all these idiots at the mall, but suddenly nobody's phone was out. When the hell has that ever happened?
Yeah, we just have one dumb, like, bird's eye view picture of some squiggly gray thing, and someone's like, yep, Nephilim.
No
that's another
cams, thing. No mall cams, no store
well,
cams.
so that's
no
the thing.
cams.
Didn't like everything was shut down or something? All the lights.
They tried to say that the fucking power was out, but when you look at the goddamn video, when all
but
the cops are on,
it's just all lights.
Are
yeah,
on.
I don't know.
Like, what are you talking about? The
That's
lights
a good
were
point.
never
Yeah,
off.
no one was taking
and then
any
they
pictures.
go, well, the airport was closed. Show me the fucking airport was closed. Was the airspace closed? I could see that because I think police helicopters at that point were in the air, right? Plus, they were fucking lighting aerial artillery shells. Right? The big boom fireworks, the ones that will blow your fucking hand off. So when you throw those around, now we have bombs going off.
Yeah.
Someone across the mall thinks that is yes.
It's a fucking terror act.
Yes.
make a great point.
Shooting terrorists. There's a mob of people. People are freaking the fuck out. So
by the way,
50
kids. 50 kids. Every fucking content creator is running with this whole 4 kids, huh? Why would they need all this attention for 4 kids? Look at all those cruisers. Yeah, but it was literally over 50 kids that showed up in a mob all at once. There is video footage of cell phones of all these kids showing up at once, and that this wasn't the first time that's happened. That it's been like a whole trend down there in Miami where
some people are like, well, explain why the police sent black helicopters. It's like, have you ever been to a city? Like, they have black helicopters, and if there's 50 people fighting, if there's 2 people fighting, if there's any helicopter nearby, it goes. Like, and all the
cops in the air.
People don't have basic information, and they're making these claims. But what's scarier overall is that people haven't been introduced to the concept of discernment. Grown people, you know what I mean? They haven't even heard about it. And also, like, people can't define the terms they use. Like, they don't know the difference between evidence and proof. It's like, okay, you've got some evidence. Doesn't seem very strong. Do you have proof? Do you know the difference between evidence and proof? People go directly to proof. It's been proved. I seen it. I heard it on TikTok. Proof. You know, and it's like, that's very scary that this is like a foreign concept.
And when you say like there haven't even been
crazy.
Real quick, when you said they haven't been like introduced to the concept of discernment, another point about that is like, especially those that are awakened now to the truth of the world, right? Now we're talking, you have people that wear MAGA hats all day and believe in QAnon that are open and awake to the truth, right?
Slogan, use discernment. They're like, use discernment. It's like,
but the thing is like, on some levels, I would agree with those people, but most I wouldn't, right? And then there's other degrees of like awake people that, like, yeah, to a certain degree, I got you. But then you go into wackadoo territory and it's all over. This lack of discernment is encouraged, or maybe it's encouraged, or it's a natural happenstance of this awakening process away from this mundane perspective of the world, where suddenly everything is possible because nothing was possible before. Or something.
I feel like I manifested that a bit
because
nothing's real and anything's possible on the black box.
Awake is not an impressive state. Like, being asleep is one thing, being awake is another. You can be awake and be a total bumbleclot fool, you know. And so it's like, just being awake, congratulations on taking the first step. You know what I mean?
Right.
Now
discernment.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. The most I've seen in this community talking about this Miami bullshit, when it came to like a debate or an argument of what it might have been. We're just talking, was it Nephilim or was it straight interdimensional aliens? Or are we talking demons? Because like we gotta discern these things and we gotta really suss that out.
Andy, this is what pissed me off with that. Sorry, Chris. This is what pissed me off with that. There's no logical reasoning. There's no let's just find something that makes sense and go with it. Oh, the police response was just too big. I'm like, have you ever been to fucking Miami? Miami is a big mecca for tourism. So they don't fuck around with any kind of interruption to the local economy. That's why the Black Lives Matter stuff didn't really take off there, because they fucking stamped it out.
When
you throw into that, it could be terrorism. You stomp it out.
Right.
And like you alluded to, the alien stuff started to fizzle out, so they had to go to the Nephilim thing. And this is what pissed me off, because I am a Christian. If you go off the scriptural descriptions of these Nephilim, they were black shadow people, like Chris said. They're fucking Endermen from a game. Nephilim, in the Bible, it just means men of renown. They don't have to be giants. And if they are depicted as giants, they're red-headed white people. There weren't a bunch of gingers walking around Miami.
Was you in Miami?
Oh, he said the good thing. Oh, Drew, you just man after my own heart. And I love that you are Christian, that we can have these kind of conversations together still. That's fantastic.
It was weird, not weird, I guess, but the lack of news clips, right? I had to go on Facebook. Facebook is where I found all the clips to put together. You know, I got 20 plus minutes of clips. I got clips. There's a couple clips on the inside, and someone will go, "Oh, they just planted those clips." I was like, "Okay, I guess."
Oh my God, they can't plant
you
anything
fucking got
else.
me, dude. I mean, like, why? Well, why would the police response? Here's a video of them blowing off artillery, massive, booming, explosive display, fucking fireworks. You know, the ones that will blow your. Remember the dude from the New York Giants? He's got a claw now because he blew his fucking fingers off, Pierre or whatever his fucking name is. That type of firework they're blowing off. So someone across the fucking open giant fucking mall, could you imagine the concussion sound coming through that?
God.
And if they're doing it multiple times, like that's the only thing I haven't went and found because I don't give a shit. Is the police scanners. I heard a little bit of police scanner, but people are like, "Oh, they switched them. They switched the police scanner."
Oh,
because
Jesus
someone called them
Christ.
like, "Hey, those are aliens out here." So,
But Chris, you've already done more research than they did.
Yeah, you've done so much more. When you
they
showed
went-
up into
they
this
went-
conversation, it was like, oh, it's all over now.
They started off on TikTok, and you went to Facebook after that. That's one more step than what they did.
Yeah,
well, no, I went all over the place. Facebook happened to be the place because here's another thing: is people don't do. These TikToks will pop up. I don't know if you know this, but a little floating TikTok thing will float around and it says their fucking name. So then you go to TikTok, right? And you type in their fucking name. And then you can pull up their other videos and be like, holy shit, they're actually the one guy who was like, yeah, I was there. It was the Endermans. They were coming. I play Minecraft. Me and my kid play. He didn't say that, but that's basically what he said. The next day he's on there and he goes, he's on Twitter. He's deleted the other, and they only show this one angle. They didn't do the 4K angle that I do. But he's on there, and the next day, and he's like, "Yo, man, my shit's blowing up. I ain't never even been to Miami, dog."
Oh
but
my God.
in his original video, he said no cap, and no cap means truth.
Yeah.
In
Did
TikTok
you
world,
see,
no cap means it's real.
Did you see the video that they had put back out and they tried to CGI in this fucking vortex thing? They were like, oh, they were summoning a vortex.
Oh, yeah. It wasn't.
was
That's
like,
not even the fucking mall. That's the thing. Them people had masks on and shit. Nobody wears
And
a
they were
mask
all
in Miami.
They were all Chinese. They were all
nobody wears
Chinese
them.
people.
I don't know about that. It was great, but they did have masks on. I don't know. Dude, nobody wears a mask in Miami. What are we talking about? Like, it's Miami. Like, that was the place you went to not wear a fucking mask. Like, what?
That's a good point.
And
Well,
then,
but everybody's got a
even the
black
argument
mask on,
though, like, there's just too many police. Okay, when you report a bomb, not a firecracker, a freaking bomb, and the appropriate amount of police show up, you think that's suspicious? That's suspicious.
But that's
No,
another
that's
thing is even the
protocol.
police said they fucking overreacted because these fucking kids do this shit all the time. In one of the clips I have is a store owner who got video from inside of the fucking mob. And that's the one they're like, nah, they planted that. He's a store owner who's like, yeah, they fucking do it all the time. It gets ridiculous. It's annoying. and fucking I had to close shop and fucking head out, and like we lose money because they come fucking mobbing through here, and fucking they do it all the time. These flash mobs happen all the time. It's just the
It's so
whole alien
ridiculous.
thing started off a fucking head floating on a TikTok. That's
So
what it started with, because then the witnesses didn't pop up until 3-4 days later, right? And then you got
This has always been a problem. Even before the internet, I would always hear stories about a giant black triangle would go over people's area, and we heard about that nationwide. Turns out that was the TR3B. That was a real thing. But we also heard about Bigfoot, and that wasn't a real thing. So we've always had this problem, and people make internal decisions on what they want to broadcast or not broadcast, even if they don't think of it in those terms. They're just a social animal. They're like, what should I say and what shouldn't I say, for a multitude of reasons. Then you have to have principles. You have to know what your principles are so you can put things in order. Like, why would I or wouldn't I say this? But if you don't have any principles, you have nothing to compare it against. Then after you have principles, which is like all of us, you know, somewhat educated and intelligent people, we all know our principles, but we still have to decide when no one's watching, do I really want to follow my principles right now when no one's watching? Because that's a different game than telling people what good principles are. So everyone's making these calculations constantly, and all of them affect your experience in this realm, you know, your popularity, your wealth, everything. And these are calculations people are constantly making, which is why it's so sad that people are involved. People are so caught up in a day-to-day topic, every day new topics. Here's the 5 topics, an alien one, a political one, or this one. And every day it's a new 5 things, and people never take a break to examine the thought process itself and decide how they want to think, you know. And we need a philosophical upgrade. Like, all the great thinkers are out there, all the great philosophy, it's never going to trend for 1 minute, you know. No offense, Sam Tripoli is never going to show you some Socrates or anything like that. It's always going to be the new thing. And that's why people don't even know what discernment is anymore. Too many new things, and it's like no time for like the essential. We got a Christian here, right? Like, it would be nice if people knew that somebody wrote like a rule book for life like thousands of years ago. It's pretty helpful.
Right.
Yeah. See, we cover, because I'm on AM Wake Up every morning, Monday through Thursday, 3 hours a day, sometimes longer. So yeah, we're covering like everything fucking new, like everything that's happening. Like, we got a document every night that's full of stuff that I never look at. And like, it's just a nonstop bombardment of stuff.
You're a news show, you know. That's what you're doing.
I guess. But then, like, I try to show old stuff and try to, like, I mean, we try to, like, keep it real, I guess. I mean, like I said, you want to know what I think of certain people, go back to last fucking Tuesday and take a listen.
I'm gonna
Can we slightly segue into the way that some people are using very, very loose terms that gives them some kind of an out, or it gives them a level of protection? Words like entities. They say entities.
Yes.
They're changing their terminology so that it's like, if they ever get caught out, they can go, I just said entities. A cat is an entity.
Well, you've seen it with the Tower Gang and Top Lobster and that Raven dude to switch into, well, we're just having fun. I get it. I mean, I jumped on the Tunnel Jews like crazy. I mean, who didn't jump on Tunnel Jews? I mean,
I immediately was like, why is this? No,
dude,
damn it, man. Why is it getting so much coverage?
Fucking crazy shit. What is happening right now? Like, what is happening
looks strange
right now? Like, oh my God.
Yeah, but
as soon as it was starting to get...
if you had a magic mirror and you could, every day you wake up and say, magic mirror, show me the craziest thing happening in the world right now, it would be crazier than the Jew tunnel. And that would ruin your life, because all you do is stare into the magic mirror and keep seeing progressive crazier things.
We do it already with the black mirror. I mean, we thought Tunnel Jews was fucking crazy. How long ago was that already? 3 weeks? No, it was just last week. We're already
and none of the topics impress me anymore. It could be literal like Project Bluebeam level stuff, and I wouldn't even be impressed. This will be gone in a day.
And Project Bluebeam isn't even technically holographic, right? The whole
you don't even know if it exists. DARPA files thousands of false patents to throw other countries off the track of what technology we have.
That's what I was saying about David Brush. It's like you fucking read documents. Like,
they admit to doing that.
Well, because if you read what the amendment to, or the upgrade, what was it called? The Smith-Mundt revision or whatever, Modernization Act that went through in 2012. Everyone's like, Obama did it. Obama wrote it. Like, no, he had to sign it. He was the fucking president. But like, you know, there's this whole thing that was being pushed through by shadowy figures that was to upgrade it to where propaganda used on other countries would be available to the US. Now,
Like
I'm
in
not
World
saying
War
that's
II.
necessarily true. That does sound like a convenient little detail, but like it's not to say that like a lot of our conspiracy information that seems legit and a lot of the actors that play those parts aren't part of that, you know?
But
The
we
short
did find
memory
that.
in this.
Pogo, man. Pogo.
Remember, we found that, me and you found that when we were looking through at these companies who specifically target these nano influencers in order to pay them to disseminate the information that they want, so that, what would they say? It was like they were a hired gun. It was easier for
Oh,
these
well,
people to go out there.
Chris
We're
was
talking
talking
new
about
video. That new video that just, it's not a new video. It's what, a year old, that one talking about Taylor Swift and using her, that was at the
Yeah.
SciCon. That video is like a year old. And then when it started to kind of make the rounds last week, and it's like, where the fuck did this come from? And I'm looking at it on my phone, and I
because you brought up an
accidentally
interesting point, Chris, about people could plant these stories. Think about how easy it would be to reverse engineer this. Now, if you had a huge account, all you need to do is make contact with maybe like a handful of small accounts in Miami,
And
be
that's
like,
what they're
you guys
doing.
find an old TMZ video, put it up, and then I'm going to share it and be like, I don't know, everyone's sharing this, and then
Dude,
boom,
that's
it's super viral. You're
what's
making-
happening on
That's
Twitter.
what they
dude.
do. Yeah, that's
That's what's
exactly
happening
what
on
they
Twitter.
do.
It's a clear example of it. There was a perfect hole appeared on the beach. Perfect hole story. Guys went out after the fact and filmed themselves digging a hole. Be like, this is going to be so funny when it's on the news. And the news picked it up. Like, wherever we have an addition to the story. You know, it's like,
To
so
a
it's like,
meteor. A meteor fucking made the perfect hole in the beach. Like a dude standing there, he's got a rock. He totally believes this rock came from space and blew a hole in the beach. That's the story you're talking about, right? Where
Yeah.
they dug a
I mean,
perfect
it might be
hole.
the same one. Yeah, but
It
I
is.
just
It's
remember
the
the guys
same
went as a
story.
prank after the fact to
Yep.
pretend that they set it up and sent it to the news, and the news didn't even like have a way to like
Well,
vet
no,
if it
they
was.
the one I
No one
seen
had
was
thought of
they
anyone
just-
doing that.
They just dug a hole, filmed themselves digging a hole, left it. And then it was on the news. Some dude's on the news with a fucking rock next to the hole saying,
An
"We
expert,
have
No,
a fucking-"
too.
you actually have it
It was an
wrong.
ex-
No.
it was-
You've got it wrong. You've got it wrong. The
Is it
dudes filmed
backwards?
their video after they saw the news report as a prank on the news, and then sent their video to the news like, "Psych, it was us who did the hole." It was a
Oh.
Wait,
different.
what?
Yeah,
Now I'm
Yeah,
confused as shit.
maybe we're talking about two
So
different
a
things. We might be
meteor
talking about-
It
did
sounds
hit
like the same
fucking
story. I
beach?
think
No
I
one
knew
knows
that.
what made the hole.
No.
The news was probably, that was some other BS story that the news was following up on. But the guys, as a joke, saw that on the news and then went and filmed themselves post facto in the daytime, saying that they filmed that the day before and they wanted credit for the hole.
That's
Oh,
weird because
okay.
it shows
Yeah.
a video of them digging.
A lot of
the
people
whole
were
hole.
reporting that. I think,
Well,
unless
right,
I
so maybe then there's proof. Maybe they did.
Maybe they
you
dug
know?
another hole. I don't know.
Either way, the problem is people who watch this stuff, especially in
I gotta
TikTok
find that
forums,
video.
they go to the biggest, most fantastical option first instead of logically break it down. Like the Jew tunnel thing. The big thing that I saw out of this was the Q people saying, "Oh, this is it. They found the tunnels where they're smuggling children." I go, "Hold on. You told me that you got rid of those tunnels during
flooded
COVID
them.
and the military flooded out and
New York
stopped
was
it."
flooding.
Did
Because
they
I
say
saw
that?
water bubbling out of
'Cause
sewers in New
I
York,
right
probably
away,
filmed in the
I-
70s.
Dude,
Yeah,
I
right.
put Benny Hill on the
Oh,
Jews
yeah.
fighting with the cops right
Yeah.
away and was like, "Oh my God, they're fighting them over their sex
actually-
tunnels." But Benny
See,
Hill
that is a real
worked
diversion,
so
though.
funny
Yeah.
on the whole. I mean, every time I seen it, like Benny Hill, like you can't get away from it, Benny Hill.
But like the Jew thing is like it's just like that meme I sent you about the T-Rex fighting in World War One, and they're debating over what style the gun was. It's like you are totally missing the freaking obvious point that the T-Rex was never fucking there to begin with. All right, so you're showing us the Jew tunnel, and it's like, okay, well, that's pretty ridiculous. But let's go back to what's really ridiculous is why it is that when they perform these circumcisions all the time, they're sucking on these little babies' penises, and it's
Yeah.
perfectly okay.
Right.
That's-
And when you think about how it was always like movies like, what was it, Spotlight with Mark Ruffalo exposing the Catholic Church. And it's like, all right, well, that's one angle, but what's all this? You know?
A lot of things
Well,
aren't
they
okay in the
all-
world. What personal sacrifices are we going to make to stop them? Because you can find them all over the place. You know?
Oh, of course. They're endless. What is this? What is
This is
the
a
mystery
quick
of the
video.
hole?
Mystery of the Hole on the
mystery of
North
the hole.
Dublin.
Late this lunchtime, the mystery of the hole on the North Dublin beach has apparently been solved. denting the hopes of a local space enthusiast who had hoped it was the site
Yeah.
of a meteor strike.
This is them getting
Footage
pranked.
emerged last night of two men digging a hole on Portmarnock Beach. Local astrophysics buff David Kennedy was startled by the discovery and thought a rock he found in the hole.
That's the news, getting pranked.
Today
Okay.
he says he's disappointed, but he's still getting the rock analysed in the hopes that it wasn't a completely...
They don't vet anything. They didn't vet the first story, and when these guys sent in the tape post facto, they didn't vet that either. They're just airing everything. They
Okay,
get sent
so
to
the tape of them digging a hole is a separate hole then? That's what confuses
Yes,
me.
yeah, that's what I'm telling you. They
Okay.
went to the beach after they were going to the beach that day. I think it was a Saturday or something. That's or Friday or Saturday. They were going to
So
the beach.
nobody knows who made this fucking hole?
The original hole. I mean, it's not even an interesting story. It didn't even
It
look
was a
that good.
beach. It was probably a couple of kids. How many kids dig holes at the beach?
This is just because they're taking
a
little
water hole.
tidbits. Even like this seems like a legitimate news station. They're taking little tidbits from the quote unquote counterculture, which is our general community, and they're going, well, this is trending now. All these young kids are listening to
The
conspiracy.
exact
I
same
guess
thing with
these are the
Hollywood
stories
movies.
we're gonna have to do.
Like
Hollywood
when
movies
you're
and
looking
predictive
at
programming. They're
this-
like, look, these movies are predictive programming. They're talking about the same things we do. It's like, no, they're creatively bankrupt screenwriters stealing your ideas off of YouTube and getting millions of dollars to make Moonfall. Not
And the
the other
thing
way
is,
around.
like, we sound like a bunch of normies here. Is like not to say that there isn't tons of fucking corruption and deception. And you know me, I think the deceptions go back thousands of years, and the symbolism and the this and the that, and their desperate control over whatever consciousness is, and maybe their upper hand on what knowing what that is, and whoever the fuck they is. Like, yeah,
You're
I'm open
totally
to all
right.
of that.
Yeah.
I'm
And
open to
the
all of
other
that stuff.
part
But
is we don't want to become Rotten Tomatoes critics of this stuff just online talking about it forever. At some point, you have to
No.
be like, how do we become better people so we can like do something besides talk about it, or like, how do we evolve this movement or do anything? You know,
right, and that's where my problem
stuff
comes
is real. There's
into
a lot
it.
of real stuff and a lot of fake stuff. It's impossible to tell it apart, but a lot of it,
See-
we know for sure that we're stealing money from Americans, so we can go murder people all over other continents, and it sucks.
Oh, absolutely.
We know about the war on drugs and all this stuff. It's like, at some point we have to figure out how, like, what are we doing? How are we leading people? Everyone's just chasing their tail,
I
agree,
totally
yeah.
agree. And we're real quick. We're going around a mountain and we're just getting to this. We're going up a mountain and we're finding the loop trail and we're just going, all right, let's just take that. And we're never, ever ascending. Like that's what this conspiracy quote unquote community has been doing since before the internet for 60 plus years. It's been putting out more and more and more, like a multitude of possibilities of what is possibly going on. It's not getting smaller. It's not getting more narrowed down. It's getting more ridiculous, and the more ridiculous aspects are getting taken seriously. And what I see is little flags getting planted all over the place where people go, yep, that's what that means now. And from those little moments on the bigger shows, and bigger is kind of irrelevant. It's like whatever big topic is happening, there's like an alternative view that kind of takes hold. And at one point, maybe it was David Icke, maybe it was fucking Chariots of the Gods, I don't know. But whatever really captured our consciousness about this alien thing in our ancient past, in our modern times, all the military funded Hollywood movies that were constantly about sci-fi aliens, all of it comes together and it's like, okay, this is a serious thing that's being discussed and a serious thing that's being pushed, not ever hidden or discredited, dramatized and made extremely provocative, but absolutely pushed for a century into the community itself. I'm kind of rambling. Someone pick this up.
Well, Andy, it's the point of misinformation, right? And I hate you saying this word because the government's weaponizing it. You could
That's
have
what
a
they're talking about,
legitimate,
Davos.
you could have a legitimate social experiment where people like ourselves get together, create a story, and plant it to show how a story can become bigger than itself, and it ends up getting bigger and bigger. We could out all that information after the fact to show we actually manipulated it and planted it to show how big a story can become globally through TikTok and social media. And they won't believe us. They'll go, oh, that's planted. Those people, they're psyops, they're feds. The real information is the video that was put out first. But we could prove that we made that video and no one would listen.
Right.
And see, the alien thing, there's
Look, it
no
pulls at our heartstrings. because
there's no
they're connecting.
victim,
Sorry.
really, right? There's no, nobody gets hurt. Okay.
What do you mean?
But with the alien stuff, people can run their whole fucking alien story and shit like that. Nobody gets hurt from it, right? But it's another quiver or arrow they can put in their quiver for the misinformation. Right now, they're in Davos trying to figure out how to cap the misinformation and get us to believe them more, basically, in a nutshell, is what they're saying. They're like, oh, this year we're talking about truth, and how do we get them to believe the truth? And the one guy's sitting there, it's always the same backdrop too. They never fix it. They are demons. They can't create anything. They have the same.
Right, yeah.
Dude, every video that's showing of Davos right now, you have to click on it to make sure it's from 2024 and it's not the last fucking 4 years, because it's the same backdrop. Even when you remember the video that was going around of Stefan, whatever his name is, from from the Pfizer guy or the Moderna guy, and they're sitting in front of the mountain thing. Even Bill Gates was there too when he goes, the vaccines were the best return on blah blah blah. It's the same fucking backdrop. It's the same counter. These are billionaires. It's the same counter. It's the same thing. They're in the same coats. It's like, what? Did they film this all at once? They're actually in their bunkers. They've been in their bunkers for 4 fucking years.
You mentioned bright blue light is on the audience. Bright blue lights like that. I mean, humans are supposed to receive yellow light. You know what I mean? Blue light like that, disorients you, stuns you, makes you lethargic, bogged down.
But they're sitting there right now they get a ski and suck each other's wiener. I don't know exactly what they do. It's like the Aspen thing. Aspen, they have the elite mountain retreat, I think is how it goes. It's kind of a tongue twister, but it's where the liberal elite mountain retreat. It's where they go and they fucking war table fucking Hunter Biden's fucking laptop. They went there and they fucking war gamed it. What?
Chris,
2 months before it comes out.
I want to throw a thought idea at you and see what you think. You said that with the alien stuff, no one really gets hurt. I'm going to say yet on this, because we know that these people, the way they weaponize misinformation and disinformation, they want some kind of event that's big enough so they can really hammer down on us with these laws and these things they want to pass.
They want a bigger Kool-Aid,
a bigger reaction.
Community.
Yeah,
a bigger sweatsuit wearing. The comment's going to take us. We all need to kill ourselves so we can be harvested like the law of fucking one.
Here's your legal mushrooms to go along with your VR as well.
Yeah.
These people can't discern basic information from a video and they buy it whole hog. What happens if a really, air quote, convincing video comes out and says certain people in the community are actually aliens and here's the evidence, and some idiot online who doesn't have 2 brain cells to rub together goes out and claws someone in the head with a hammer?
They do that now.
That's when it gets violent.
Yeah, with the whole pronoun situation. They do it with the pronoun situation. Here we go. This made up word. I'm going to identify as this and I identify as that. Okay, well, now you're going to identify as an alien so that you can go carry out this insane idea because this is what you thought was supposed to be carried out. So you're just throwing out these terms so people latch onto them and they align with this idea of what it should do. And then they carry it out for them. They don't ever have to do too much of shit to us because we do it to ourselves and they laugh about it.
They always just have to give a little, I hate to use, Drew, right? It's like the religious idea of having the devil whisper in the ear. It's that's all they need to do. And I do think they do it. So that's why, Brandy, Drew, you guys had an amazing episode. Anyone that has not listened to the episode that you guys did over on Missing the Point, or You're Missing the Point, about the Department of Energy's involvement in weaponizing this community over God knows what, man. Especially with what that guy was.
Is that what you guys were talking? Is that what you're talking about, Brandy? Is the weaponization of the YouTubes and shit? Because I talked about the Pogo thing. I had found that Ryan had led me to Pogo.
Right.
And then,
even
explain
Obama,
Pogo. Explain Pogo for. I don't remember
Pogo's
what that
basically
is.
the same thing. Pogo was just this fucking dude. This audio showed up from 2019. Ryan from Dangerous World, he turned me on to it. He had a little clip of it. It sent me down a rabbit hole. I had to go to Yandex, and I got the whole fucking thing. And it's him, this guy explaining that I got some documents. They come straight from the White House, right from the table of the president of the United States. I'm going to tell you these documents. They have the Project Pogo is, you have these influences, you know, the big YouTubes, the Alex Joneses and the Tim Pools, and they create these honeypots. So these, you know, we let them stay up so they can spread their misinformation, and all these people will listen to them, you know. And then you got Project Zephyr, and Zephyr's when they started eliminating these people. And when we talk about eliminating, it could be killing them or putting them in prison, which we're seeing. They're putting people in prison for fucking speech. I mean, granted, a lot of it's connected to J6 right now. They had a fucking dude right down the street from me who they fucking kicked in his door because of his rap lyrics, right? So like,
Unfortunately, there's not a lot of initiative to improve your nation when your belief is that it's the greatest nation in the world forever.
That's for
There's the
sure.
impetus to work on it.
yeah.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
the Project Pogo thing, I played the whole thing on my show, like 2 months ago. Fucking Sam Tripley did it the other day. Kind of pissed me off because I'm the one who told him about it. He didn't say a
I want
fucking
to say
thing.
quickly
That's
on aliens that you know, I've never really studied aliens. I'm more of like a Star Wars guy than a Star Trek guy. It's just never really been my lane. But I think it's so prominent in the human consciousness and Bigfoot too that if it doesn't exist already, it will soon. Like unicorns, we'll just make them because they're so on our mind. And that's kind of how sci-fi works. Is like the ideas are a precursor to the the execution or the engineering of it.
fucking
But
manifest Bigfoot.
yeah, exactly. Because, you know, there's these symbols that represent things and they give us all common. Like, did you ever think about how like everyone has different languages with the same concepts? Like if you can find the right word, the person already has the concept.
Oh,
and that's
yeah.
universal. No one's
Hell yeah.
missing like a noun or a verb. They might not have like the speculative case, like Asian people don't have like woulda, shoulda, coulda, but they'll have all the nouns and verbs. All you have to do is find the right word for it. So it's like we all have these same ideas about aliens and stuff like that. And it means something, but the meaning is not hidden from us. It's just work to go get it. Like the mystery schools are like not, they're only secreted in the sense that it's difficult to obtain the information, but anyone can go become a Mason or read what the Masons are reading. Like I read what the Masons read. It's a lot of really cool stuff. I don't want to go join because I got to read the stuff and like Manly P. Hall and all and everything like that, all the mystery schools. So it's like you can find out like why people think about aliens, what, you know, what they're, I don't think it's going to be exactly what we think they are or how we describe them in stories and stuff like that. But the concept is there for a reason and it's important. Some people know about it and some people don't. And we should be pursuing that knowledge, you know?
I think this is a perfect segue. And Seth, I really appreciate what you just said. And we're heading into hour 2 right now, guys. And I do want to take it a little further, maybe not a whole nother hour, but this is the area that I kind of want to get into because a lot of the research that not only myself, but and a couple others have been doing over the past couple of years, but a whole contingency of people that now that I've started a Telegram kind of dedicated to this topic, there's more and more people flocking inward towards it, and it's gaining ground with this idea that, you know, there is a lost history. There, like, we are much older than the establishment wanted to admit for whatever reason. That doesn't have to necessarily be some gigantic conspiracy around aliens and demons. It could be just because everyone's going to lose their tenure, everyone's going to lose their jobs, entire the structure of education about history would have to change, blah, 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 blah. There could be a lot of terrestrial reasons for it, but regardless, that can exist without fucking ancient aliens or supernatural gods. But for some reason, these very important things, and of course it's attached to our fear of death ultimately. And I've been saying for the past 6 months or so, with a fear of death of any kind, the conspiracy theorist is at some point going to get off the bus and it's not going to be able to go all the way, because at some point it's going to have to be like, well, consciousness is weird. I know that. I've had some weird consciousness experiences. Therefore, I'm just going to allow these guys that pay more attention to aliens and talk more about interdimensional demons and stuff. I'll follow their lead because I'm open, because consciousness is kind of weird and I'm open to that. And that's kind of where I'm watching it lead. I'm watching people like Billy Carson skyrocket
Billy.
to, and he is everywhere, all over at least my YouTube algorithm, and I never search for him, but he is in that ancient alien type thing, and it is getting bonkers now because now podcasters with serious discernment that will taboo different conspiracy theories and think it's all full of shit and bullshit, and they're more legitimate. It's just they can't see it because they're political leaning, are taking all this shit hand in hand. You got big actors like Tucker Carlson and people like that talk about aliens. Like, I'd be scared to talk. I'd be scared to talk about what I know. We got Tucker Carlson saying, "Hey, it may not even be aliens. What if it's demons?" As if that's some fucking cutting edge new perspective. And it's not. It's a fucking dialectic, and it depends on your fear of death, which area of philosophy you choose to abide by. Which territory are you going to fall into? And that's I'm seeing an avalanche starting to happen.
That's it's a damn scapegoat. You still want to say that it's some boogeyman under your bed, and if you don't abide by the boogeyman's rules, that you're going to get jerked by your ankle in the middle of the night underneath the bed, and you're going to go to hell, and you're going to have to fucking repeat all your demons over and over and over again, when nobody can just say, you know what, I bet it's us.
I thought we
Hey, Brandy, don't be messing with the bed monster. Don't be messing with that bed monster. I always cover my feet just in case.
Depending on the religion, right? I thought we go to hell and boil in feces, or
of course, right?
The Jews or something.
But
or you could be that peep and Tom guy, and you're forced to be a bird outside that woman's window for the rest of your life. But
I definitely like
to make criticisms of the heaven and hell dynamic, but I won't even go into that. I think that's a disastrous addition to our thought lexicon.
Well, you know what's cool? You know what's cool about that whole thing, and this is all I'll say on that, is I believe that everything is fractal, and I've said that many, many times, and that's kind of like a psychedelic point of view. But if you study Mandelbrot and what fractals really are and what it could mean about reality, you start to see the same stories everywhere. So you see the Bible stories as allegorical, possibly, and that can be true. And there's many different layers to it.
Like pi doesn't end. You know what I mean? That's a fractal right there. That means your questions are never answered, and what you're supposed to pursue, what it says in the Bible, is to pursue a peace that transcends understanding, because the understanding is not available to you, but the peace is.
Absolutely. And so it's almost like proof of the whole that you can't see. And like the heaven and hell concept, there's
the ledges of that knowledge. Right.
This is where I kind of wanted to get into it. I'm really glad, Drew, that you're here, because you do have a faith, and it is Christianity, and you're very interested in history and all of this ancient shit. And earlier, you disparaged quite a prominent view in the Christian conspiracy narrative that you mentioned red-haired giants or red-haired Caucasians or something along those lines. And that's kind of poo-poo, because these are like literal sons of supernatural gods, right? Like, or what is like, these are supernatural beings in the Bible. And that's how, if you are just a little bit Christian or a lot Christian, but you're into cryptids and all that kind of stuff, you just take all of this, you spend 2 seconds with it, and you're like, yep, and then Dogman and this and Bigfoot is this, and we know everything. We're just creating this whole comic book.
Kamala Harris is the Leviathan.
Oh, absolutely. I can agree with that.
I think the thing that people go to is that
it's a comic book. Like, what the fuck?
Even within religion, people tend to make things bigger than they are. And there's one part of scripture that rings so true across, it's in the Torah, it's in the Old Testament, it even comes into the New Testament, that true evil exists within the wicked hearts of men. I don't need a demon. I don't need some lizard person at the World Economic Forum creating all this huge stuff. There's evil people in the streets that exist, and that's enough for me.
And if you don't recognize the demon in you, it's in control.
Exactly.
Boom. I love
Not
that.
that I dismiss that there's some kind of spiritual realm. I do believe in that spiritual realm and things. That's my faith. But I don't take away that the majority of evil in the world exists within the hearts of men and the actions of man.
I love it. And of course, when you read the scriptures, they talk often about the great deceiver, You know, the devil, of course, when you really look into it, these words like devil and demon have much different meanings. As
You
soon as
bedevil
you go,
yourself, the voices in your head, unguided, you know, you bedevil yourself.
Absolutely.
Everyone has that opportunity to whisper in their own ear to make their wrong choice.
Exactly. And that's what I was saying before about the fractal thing. You know, I mean,
Yeah,
we
I
can-
love what you're saying about fractals, because I was just thinking if I had to describe God, I would just say a fractal. I was just thinking that the other day. I thought
Right.
that's so interesting. What I've kind of coined this term, I don't know if it exists or not, but of first mover fallacy, where even though it seems as if we're created in the image of God, meaning that God contains the multitudes, and as the multitudes are also within us, every possibility of you know, initiative or whatever you want to call it. But then people are always looking for another first mover. Like, we couldn't have built the pyramids. Aliens showed us. Who showed them? You know, who showed them? It's always they. There's always a they. Okay, well, who's in between? You know what I mean? Like, how come no one can find it? And so, yeah, it's like, it's within us. You know, somebody doesn't need to tell us to talk about aliens. Like, we can decide, we can talk about aliens. Somebody doesn't need to give us alien technology to reverse engineer. We can have the idea and reverse engineer from our ideas. That's actually how everything is engineered. So we don't need like demigods or like a Greek pantheon to give us this stuff, or Atlanteans. Like, clearly every human being is capable of, you know, of, or at least humanity at a whole at any point is capable of doing anything.
Bingo. That was
But
perfect.
when you admit that, then that means that you have taken away all the government's plan of aliens and their control. You've taken away religion because you're supposed to be afraid of what they tell you to be afraid of. And it's just, you've taken away everybody's excuse, basically.
So I put up the Yinyang here because it
I
just
would
made
agree.
me think of what you were saying. Because I've heard the Yinyang explained as a single fish chasing its own tail. You know, and it has a lot of meanings.
Isn't that like
but
a serpent eating its tail?
The
it absolutely is that meaning as well, and we could take that to different places, but in a more conscious, spiritual kind of like inner gnosis kind of way. Like, this was kind of one of the conclusions I came to when taking a massive dose of psychedelics at one point, was that this multitude, this singularity, it's a constant loop, and it's like a fish chasing its own tail, wondering if there's another fish or if it's just its own tail.
Funny, I never heard of that.
It's almost as if like it doesn't matter, because everything is just conceptual, and physicality is actually just the metaphor.
It's so funny
it
that you
also
bring up.
shows infinite energy, because if you're always chasing your own tail, and if two cells are always orbiting each other, it's always creating a nonstop energy.
That's totally true. And actually, how you get that shape, where that shape derives from, is you put two different color, literally sauces in a sauce dish and spin it, and it makes the, without the dots. So that is the animating force of the fractal that is everything. If everything's a fractal, the reason it's fractaling is the action of it is the dark and the light, and there's no, you can't remove one or the other, and one doesn't win and the other doesn't lose, and there's no beginning or end to it, which is why you'll never have an understanding, because an understanding is things, it requires boundaries, or you can't understand anything. So if you acknowledge that reality is fractal, give up on understanding it, and instead do what Jesus said and pursue the peace.
Boundaries, man.
Yes.
There's a ledge. There's a ledge to that understanding. That's why it's called knowledge. You know where the ledge is.
I think you're all wrong. The
It's
yin-yang.
the log, the logic from the tree, right?
I love that.
Well,
right?
the yin-yang
I mean, you
is
just
actually...
said there's a boundary to the understanding, and that's like, yeah, I mean, you know where that ledge, that's
Yeah, you
where
need to know
knowledge-
that
that's where
concepts have
knowledge comes
edges.
from.
You know, concepts have edges. So otherwise, it's just the concept just spills out
And
everywhere.
if you know that edge, you have the
reality
knowledge.
doesn't have edges. It's fractals infinitely. But
Here's
not
the
according
next-
to Drew, who's going to correct it right now.
here's the next
Dope.
the next TikTok trend. The yin yang actually represents someone who went back in time with the time machine and drew a 69.
Probably.
That's a multi-generational joke, and
That's-
people have been blown out to be something bigger than it is.
You know what? But it is, because of course, according to Box Saga, it absolutely is just like the Ouroboros is.
Yeah.
But that's another story for another time.
Shit,
but
what
along
was
with the
it? At
Fractals, the
Box
Box Saga
Saga.
recognizes that, like, even though, like, Seth, I know we've never talked about the Saga, but just to fill in anyone that's not familiar with the Saga, it's a very literal humanist history version of our origins, basically. And it takes a lot of, like, supernatural things that we've just accepted as religious traditional words, and, like, you know, a word like a Eucharist, or words like Jerusalem, supposedly in this root language in Saga, means a very human thing and has nothing to do with a spiritual thing.
Real quick on that
yeah,
Box Saga,
sure,
dude.
sure.
Like, you know, Frey and Fry, right? That's the
Frey and Freya.
Frey and Freya. Okay, because there's
Frey
the two.
and
There
Freya.
two AI. The two AI. There's two AI that they are enrolling in school. Right.
And what are they called?
Fry and Anna. And when I seen Fry, I was like, oh man, that it made me think of Box Saga. They're this the first time they've done this, put these two AI in to we covered it today. I think it's in Michigan, one of the schools in Michigan, to see how long it takes the AI to graduate and move on to college and shit.
Are they considered sibling AI?
I don't know.
That'd
We
be
probably made
interesting.
too many jokes and never got into that part.
That is really interesting.
Just the Fry in there.
But so
Frey and Freya. I thought it was Fry and Freya. Or
let
maybe
me
maybe I did say Frey and Freya. Let me look it up because it might be.
Frey
yeah,
and
look.
Freya?
Real quick, we're talking about this deeper consciousness aspect of it, and if there is an aspect, a nefarious aspect to secret societies that have control over the world, perhaps this is clearly some of the material they're probably aware of. And because of the institutions that they've pushed out to the peasants for thousands of years, wouldn't it kind of make sense that, like, okay, this consciousness shit, there's a fine line, because the whole new age, there's a lot of deception in there. You know, that's a whole honeypot too. And it has been for a century. And that shit's leading into aliens as well. You look at Crowley, he's the first one that ever drew a fucking gray alien. And he was British intelligence.
Wait,
So,
Andy, are you saying that sunning my butthole each morning isn't actually doing anything for me?
I think it absolutely could. I wouldn't say anything. I mean,
It get you a
the
sunburnt
sun,
butthole.
but I mean, you might be accused of being a sun worshiper in the community, in the Christian community, though.
No, I'd
Yeah,
get
these
too many
two
freckles down there, mate. I
AIs
couldn't do that.
Is Anne and Fry.
Anne and Fry. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know where
mean,
the root word to Fry is, but
well, that would be Frey.
yeah. So I mean, the first
story of them.
two AI being enrolled in a school to see how long it takes them to get through Ferris State University is Anne and Fry.
Yeah, that's
Probably by
fucked up.
Friday if it's going off the name.
Yeah, I mean, I just this morning, I think we covered it this morning, and it hit me. I was like, oh shit, dude, like that's crazy, because these are the first two of this, and I was just thinking of the first.
Well, the only reason I brought up the
story.
only reason why I brought up the Saga was just because it does stand as a great example of what I think personally the biggest deception going on is, at least in terms of our desire as a people to know where we came from and possibly where we're going. That would definitely be controlled first and foremost if there's a nefarious hand. And the Box Saga basically tells us, I'd say the best example of it is that Atlantis means alt, lant, east, all land, ice. And it was a time period where people struggled to survive and humanity was broken apart, and a lot of interesting motifs that sound like it's like, you know, when a urban legend was originally just a very boring human story, but it grows legs. And that kind of basically the Saga treats our entire alternative history and mythology and religion like that. And it's pretty comprehensive. And it just keeps going and going and going. Wherever you try to disprove it, it doesn't seem to, it's pretty hard to disprove so far. And it's pretty interesting. It's a very humble story. And it's the only fucking story out there in the conspiracy world that's literally talking about a human origin story and nothing else. A very humble beginnings, rags to to rags over and over again kind of story. Honestly, it's really interesting. And what's crazy, it's a northern hemisphere story, and there's a lot of little pieces that make people go, this sounds racist, this sounds like Nazis. And it's like, yeah, no, it's not, because literally in the beginning, in paradise, everyone's brown, everyone's black before the cataclysm occurs. It's interesting. But just
before the light was brought forth.
Well, before the
Saga
ice came,
racist.
before, Altalantes.
But I mean, even that the ice can be considered as light, because ice is a blinding bright reflection.
That's
so
true.
yeah, it would make sense. You have a dark element, and then you introduce the ice as a light element, and then you also would have two different elements altogether. You have a physical element and you have a water element, but the water element is frozen, so it's not in its relaxed state. It's in a constricted state.
The thing about Box Saga, it becomes a chicken and the egg type of scenario, and I find it very interesting both historically and theologically, because you look at every other time period, every other type of human being that's existed, they've got some kind of spiritual beyond man belief. Something's greater than them. Now, is that because of Box Saga, or did the people who created the story of Box Saga, where all this kind of comes from, did they have their own spiritual belief system as well?
So I can go into that real quick. Now, at least this is just according to Saga, because I can basically quote this. It's not me saying like, I think this is exactly what happened, because this is a very controversial aspect of the Box Saga. It's where they claim we get the word religion, which originally they claim meant re-legion, as in like a reorganization, or where we get legion is in the Bible. It's like, we are legion, and that's coming from like Satan, right?
So
like
fucking
it's
crazy how interchangeable this shit is.
So basically what they did was, this is the time period that in the Box Saga is referred to as when the black ink hit white paper. I mean, before that, the stories were all passed down orally, and this is in like the early 3000 BC, very late, like around Sumer, when Sumer was like the first area, Mesopotamia was happening. This is when this story takes place, when this northern king from the Aesir people in the Box Saga, this northern group that was cut off for so long because of the ice, starts to descend southward. His name in the Box Saga is Krishna, and Krishna comes down and kills the local king named Narakasura. Well, this story is paralleled in Vedic Hinduism. It's all right there. It's a similar story. It's not exactly the same, and it paints Krishna as this great hero and Narakasura as this beast, this gigantic beast or whatever. It's really interesting how it all comes together. But basically, it tells this story of these people that had to flee the area because their king was killed, because this Krishna came down and took over the area and broke up all the caste systems that were previously there. And they ended up in Egypt, and they asked for help from the north, from these Aesir people that were finally able to be contacted. And they sent these two women down, and this woman was named, I think her name was like Mosa. I think that's what it was. And this is their Torah story, where they wrote the Torah in the Taurus time period, because it's astrological. And the Torah was the re-legioning. And the re-legioning was literally taking these old stories of men and turning it into stories of, like, basically what I've always described for the past 2 years. I've had a hard time wrapping my words around, trying to figure out how to call it this. It's like they've twisted up our spirituality and our history and made some of it all one. They've relegated history to fiction, to hide it in plain sight.
They reversed our Taurus.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So this is where I started to explore Lawrence Gardner and Nicholas DeVere and all the Grail legends, because a lot of that was using etymology to prove that words like angel was the same word as elf and elven. And these words all went back to human titles and job descriptions. Gnome and goblin both led to gnosis, and all these different things were human terms. And it had all been turned on its head at some point. What's interesting I'm finding is I'm learning all about the Grail lore and how this Merovingian bloodline that Jesus was supposedly attached to, and that's very, who knows? People say he doesn't exist. People worship him. Who knows? But that story coming out of Europe is paralleling this Bach Saga story of when they claim this Pope Leo IX hired a Germanic army and sent it to Helsinki and murdered everybody. It's the time periods are lining up and the themes are lining up. This old bloodline gets wiped out and the Catholic Church takes over in Europe. Well, in Scandinavia, it's the same fucking thing. And then in 1248, 200 years later, there's record of this burgher guy, this king in Sweden, welcoming these northern old kings back into Helsinki, where they used to live, where they had to flee because the Catholics destroyed them. And this is literally the story of the Bach Saga, where these Bockstroms had to flee north to the Kajani region of Finland when hell was sacked. Whew.
I can conceptualize all that because it makes sense that words and the meaning of words change over time and they're interchangeable, and a story becomes bigger than it is. I understand that, but the missing thing for Bach Saga for me is that the Visir, the people that came from the north, these people who were trapped by ice, who went out into the world. Does it actually ever describe them having a faith or a spirituality or anything bigger than themselves?
Yes, it definitely does. It's really pretty direct because it's all worshiping the nature. The closest thing to spirituality I've found in the Bach Saga, and it's really interesting too because there's a whole line of authors you can read about sacred tree worship and sacred trees all around the world, usually oak trees. It is the story of the oak tree. And actually in Paradise Time, it was the ash tree where the ancestors' ashes after they had the funeral pyre would be put under the family tree. And there's belief, which is where they get the word belief, is that the soul would go in with the nutrients of the soil and up through the trunk of the tree to the branches of the tree, to the stems, and to the leaves, so that eventually they would become the leaves, be the leaf. And then the soul would fall with the leaf. And when the leaf would hit the ground, the soul would be breathed back into the holy in the top of the planet, which they claimed had a centrifugal toroidal shape and force that would bring everything in. Really interesting because that relates to a lot of Hyperborea stories and the magnetic Mount Meru in the north and this toroidal idea.
Avatar fucking story from,
dude?
Because
where did
Avatar is about the tree, right?
Familiar, the tree cutting down. And that was another story from
That's
hell.
Where your logic comes from, the log.
Right,
Logi,
exactly.
Right. That's what I was saying about the
yeah.
knowledge. You were saying earlier about knowing the boundaries of these ideals. That's knowing the ledge, the knowledge, and
to understand.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like too, though, they're explaining like mathematical terms. They're explaining energetic forces, like they're explaining the magnetic force of how it's regenerated, and that you have to have this centrifugal, this centrifuge, and it has to come out and come back in, like the torus. And when you reverse the torus, you're going to get this type of cataclysm, this shift, this reversal, where everything is the upside down and right side up, this, as above, so below, and then everybody's left without the actual interpretation of what they were just trying to explain, as in, you are it and it is you, and you feed into it as it feeds into you, and it'll never ever stop, because that's just the law of nature, is that the energy will never die. There is no death.
That's well said.
It's that energetic transfer when the person dies and their ashes are put in the tree and the leaf drops. That's you returning to source. How's that any different from heaven?
Right. Well, also, it took place in a place that was called heaven in the story, because here's the interesting part, is that hell to them meant heaven. Heaven, hell meant home, meant completion, It meant the cycle of completion. It meant the place where they lived. It's really interesting because
So
we
that
have the
even,
Hellas people, you know, we have these people in Greek mythology as well.
does it twist into the word heathen even? Because that's just
That comes from hidden.
Yeah.
The heathen people.
The Greek people, what were you saying about the Greeks?
The Greek
Helios?
mythology, the Hellas people.
Helios.
I was thinking
the Helios. Helios.
The
Okay,
city
yeah,
of
Helios.
On, the city of On, the city of the sun, Helios, the
It's all sun
sun
worship, just like Bach
Yes,
Saga.
and that's like religion. You were saying had another meaning with the and the regrouping
Ra.
of legions, but then
Oh,
you
yeah.
look at Ra or Re, and it's legions of Re or Ra because
Mhm.
Legions of the
all comes
Rays.
back to the sun.
Well, yeah. And then, of course, what's interesting about Saga 2, which this is the last thing we should talk about here anyway, just move on quickly. But, you know, what's interesting is that it kind of solves certain issues in society with the ways they describe. I've talked about this recently on a previous episode, but they describe a money system where coins were made each year with the king's face on it and handed out to the society to keep the currency going, to keep that energy flowing. But at the end of the year, all of it was turned back in and melted down to make the new coins because there was no wealth gaining. What else is interesting is that the firstborn son was the king, but he was never allowed to make children. So there was no nepotism. The baby makers were not the kings. So there's a lot of that in the saga too. So it's like, why is this the least talked about
So
one?
then
But it's the least
gets
talked about.
inverted.
The least talked about alternative theory or out there non-mainstream theory we have is a human origin story. Because even mainstream redeems all of our folklore and mythology as just made up bullshit or generalized hero stories. Nothing's real. But I'll tell you, turn yourselves onto a book called The Lost Kingdom in the North, or Lost Civilization in the North by Morton Alexander Geramo, because it's all about his decoding of Jason and the Argonauts and the Iliad and the Odyssey and how these stories really took place and where they led. And what's crazy is that after 20 years of his research or so, looking into those stories and where it led him to say, holy shit, these are real stories. These aren't just generalizations of, you know, tribulous times in the past. No, these are real people and real stories. Well, it led him right to Eeyore Bach in Finland. And he started learning about the Bach Saga in 1989, I think, like way the fuck back, right when Eeyore started telling it. He just happened upon it because of what he was studying. It's fucking crazy. But it's like Velikovsky had these ideas too, that folklore and mythology, this supernatural aspect was kind of a concealment of a layer of down-to-earth reality. And then, of course, we have things like astrotheology. You know, people can say what they want, but that's a pretty spot on farmer's fucking almanac of how to treat life throughout the year. You know, that it's like a way to handle life. I mean, it's pretty crazy.
Plowing, when to start planting, when to start
why do we have
harvesting,
why do we have these underdog human stories? They're not regarded by the mainstream or academia, but they're also completely rejected by all the alternative side of it. And we get to hear about dogmen and fucking entities at the UAP hearings instead. And I'll go out on a limb and say
cat?
I'll go out on a limb and say, yeah, the ginger cat, right? Yes. I would go out on a limb and say Sasquatch. I think there's enough Native American stories to talk about, like, you know, there's a version of the Nephilim kind of story in our history that has to do with a version of ourselves, I would say, for sure. Or
I put a video up of a giant ass dude. Like
some of the old newspapers are full of shit because they were mastodon bones that people were getting crazy about in the stories. Other ones don't seem to be so mastodon bony.
Have you seen these? Let me pull up this video real quick.
And Seth,
Well,
I
is
know
it so
you,
far
Seth, you brought up Bigfoot in previous parts of this as kind of like an example of, see, this is when we're going way out to lunch, and I agree for the
I want to
most
say, by the
part
way, if
because
that's your wheelhouse, I approve of it. If you're like, I
Yes.
don't think one-on-one
not
is
my
bad. I'm
wheelhouse.
not against cryptids or anything like that, but I'm just against generalists. Like,
Yes,
you know,
yes.
generalist to me is you're just a content farmer. You know what
Well,
I mean?
especially if you're after the truth and you're claiming to kind of be like peeling back the layers, man, and especially those on trying to do that behind paywalls.
Yeah, there's nothing
my
wrong with
God.
entertainment. If people are just like the wackiest videos from around the world, or
Hell
like maybe through unsolved
Have you
mysteries,
got-
anything, it's fine. Yeah, yeah.
Have you guys
Top
seen
10
this old
Sasquatch.
World Florida stuff?
Old World Florida is awesome. Like I
Dude.
can't fuck with anything that he talks about, and he's the only one that's convinced me of more literal giant, you know, because I go down a whole thread of
So
like,
you've probably seen this video then.
well, he and I have talked a lot about this together, about the word giant and how it used to mean nobility. Like there's even, speaking of Sasquatch, the Susquehanna people, it's written about in the 1700s. Someone writes, the Susquehanna people are a giant race of people. Therefore, they were
Let me see if
attired.
I can find
Now, this word
Afghanistan
attired
video.
means, this word attired that he describes the Susquehanna giant people as being, attired meant like dressed in fancy and expensive garments reserved for nobility. That's because it doesn't make sense to say the Susquehanna people were a giant race of people, therefore they were wearing clothes. That doesn't make any, that's not a sentence. That's not a thing that someone says. But if it means nobility, therefore they were attired, meant therefore they were dressed rich as fuck.
I think the easiest thing to go to when people talk about Sasquatch, Bigfoot, all these giant, like hairy men in the forest, right? Why do we have the idea of humans, the Cro-Magnon, Homo erectus, upright walking humans up over here, and we've got chimps and monkeys on one side, but we're completely outside of the realm of thinking that someone in the middle survived and they're surviving in pockets around the world?
Absolutely.
It's not so much cryptid as it is a type of upright walking human.
And very recently, they've proven without a doubt that Cro-Magnon is
like
modern human, not even
look at
just
this guy's
anatomically,
face.
absolutely modern human. So what does that mean? They're just separating Cro-Magnon from modern human because they don't want to admit that there was shit going on back then? Okay, sorry, Chris, this video clip.
Well, I mean, you see that dude's face? I mean, it looks pretty I mean, he's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And
This
he's
Break a coconut on his brow.
3 different levels of human person, I guess. One's
Yeah.
almost touching the ceiling.
And we were just talking about fractals. Look.
Is this crazy? This is some video I found from Afghanistan or something. I don't even know where it came from.
Yeah, like
I
what's
went
with
down
the
this
stories
rabbit
from
hole of YouTubes that you can't read the descriptions because they're in weird, you know, they're like in I don't
I really
know what
think
the
they're
characters the Arabic or something. I don't know what the fuck they're in.
I really
Characters
think
can't- no letters.
they must be hiding some sort of consciousness sort of thing that we've been talking about, because that would free us if it was like told to us in an authoritative way across the world. It would for the fractal idea, if it was explained thoroughly enough beyond any of our comprehension, would probably fucking free us all. However, all of this supernatural shit, like the Bigfoot topic, anything that we could relate to actual like humanoids or something like that, it's all being taken for a ride towards more wackadoo shit in the bigger channels. And I won't mention any names, but
take all the topics you're interested in, everything that gets your attention on the internet and beyond, all the aliens, Bigfoot, politics, culture, the future, the past,
do it
history,
on JFK
get it
Jr.
all
yeah.
together and shrink it down till you can see the whole thing and be like, what do we got here? You know what I mean? Because you get lost in the details and the days
Yeah.
of your life dwindle away.
Giant
You go back
Bidens.
and see the shape, you might start to
Giant
see
Bidens.
you might start to see the fractal if you pull back and look at the whole thing. Because you're right, that is the more important thing. That's the future. That's what's going to set us free. It's not going to be a revolution inspired by some political, you know, flash in the pan thing. Is going to be a revolution for the human spirit. It's going to be people looking at the big picture and deciding en masse. A revolution is everyone together making small sacrifices. You know what
Hell
I mean?
yeah, man.
Not like one guy making a huge sacrifice for everyone, but everyone seeing the shape of things and deciding, You know, like that's what we're really looking for. So take all the stuff that distracts you and attracts you and try to shrink it all down so you can see everything you've got there and try to find any pattern or shape of it and decide what the heck you want to do with it, because it's just going to keep accumulating more stuff until you die.
Hell yeah, man. I mean, I think you and I talked about that on Woo Wednesday one time. It's like once you see the fractal, then you can feel it like in every part of your life. And you're like, oh, okay. So this is okay.
And it makes the details and fear. It eliminates fear and makes the details kind of, you know, inconsequential.
So that sounds really dangerous to a status quo nefarious group, in my opinion. Giving us, you know, comforts beyond death, though, it's weird.
A man,
you know?
who fears no death is a free
What's
man.
going to get more clicks when you think about like these big topics like Bigfoot, UFO, aliens, Nephilim?
Reassure us. Are you going to fucking sure us? That's what they want.
Going to get more clicks on I've discovered a Bigfoot, look at my footage, or I've found a Neanderthal that's living in the forest and a tribe of Neanderthals. What's going to get more clicks?
I wouldn't
actually go with Neanderthal.
Well, yeah, I would.
Joe Rogan would have that guy.
Well, actually,
you'd hope a Neanderthal in Afghanistan or something.
They did.
It seems like what gets
I wrote it wrong.
Is the DOE or some undercover agent contacted me personally to disseminate this information, and I have sources and contacts that I can't tell you about, but they have taken me into these underground tunnels and experimented with me to let you know about these aliens that they just can't tell you about. That seems to be where the clicks are coming from. Oh,
Theodore Roosevelt started the national parks to protect the Bigfoot that live underground and help the aliens build giant bases.
And the question is more like
forestry
this.
officer told me.
The question is this: which one is more clickable? Is it, what if Bigfoot is a humanoid terrestrial creature that has something to do with our history, or Jack Safardi on a mega podcast talking about time travel and robots contacting him as a kid, and partying with Terrence McKenna at Esalen, hanging out with CIA people. So that's what I'm saying. Like
that's what I was trying to get to, Andy. It's not cool and it's not cool and sexy if it's something relatable and something we already know. If we already know this thing is a type of human or a creature.
Getting the clicks is working in the system.
And
by getting the clicks, you're never going to supersede the system that contains the clicks. The way we make real progress is by superseding the loop that we're stuck in. So getting the clicks is not the way to get towards the kind of awakening we're hoping for.
Only in like that cryptid alien realm.
It's everyone stopping chasing the clicks and giving each other cover. Like, hey, none of us are going to share this Miami story. Just no.
And dude, I experienced that on Friday.
Back and forth. Yeah.
When that exploded on Twitter, and you know, someone got upset or something. A couple of those.
Good to see the pushback has a little momentum too.
I don't give a fuck.
By all means, come at me. A couple of people got upset, and so that's the thing. It became this gang mentality, and just because I made fun of a podcaster because I think a lot of this shit is total wackadoo simpleton shit and psyopy for the most part. I do that, and these guys act like, oh, dude, we can't even look away. We got to keep commenting and making fun of you and using these ad hom attacks, and we're just watching you set yourself on fire and ruin your whole podcast. Like, why? Because I'm putting my foot down and saying grifters. So what?
And then you die anyhow, whether you ruin your podcast or not. It doesn't matter.
No, fuck that. No, I'm saying no. That's like literally what I stand for. Is I'm not putting up with some fucking chapter 1 conspiracy shit anymore, and no one needs to. We're all indoctrinated. We all should fucking have some discernment and cut this shit out. But when that shit happened with you and me and Dave and Scott and Drew and Brandy, all that stuff happened. What happened afterwards? Not a goddamn thing. And he has, well, yeah, your nudes got leaked. He threatened lawsuits that never fucking happened because Dave from Generation Z is pathetic.
He's a piece of shit.
But guess what? He's getting tons of clicks, and he's on all the podcasts now, leading part of this charge into bonkers land, and it's being taken seriously.
He got a rollerblade at Tim Pool's fucking compound.
That's so cute. And this is gonna look at as like jealousy, I'm sure.
Basement. This fucking idiot who takes bits and pieces from everywhere, like they all do, says it's his own, creates this world that does not exist out of his parents' basement, says he's going to this lab and that lab when it's literally just different places in different houses, his mom's house, his grandparents' house, in his
Well, if he wasn't
bedroom.
in a lab before, he's going to a fucking lab now.
going to him now.
I'm not going to lie.
Said on Tim Pool.
I'd love to go and watch this Timcast now. I'm probably going to watch it after this, just because it's probably be more entertaining than The Office.
I can't even bring myself to it because it's like,
It
you know
hurts
what?
to see that level of an audience.
It's just like
being taken for a
I've had
ride.
this idiot at my house bending up my spoons and saying I did it with my mind. Well, if you did it with your mind, why did you hide it in my closet? You fucking
He
idiot.
did a goddamn what's his face? A Yuri fucking
Yeah,
Yuri
because he's a
Geller?
Yuri Geller.
So this is what I'm talking
Wait
about.
a
We
minute,
have
Yuri Geller was busted. How the fuck you gonna play that?
because no one
goddamn
cares
shit?
if anything gets busted. They just think. And this
They
is what I'm
think
talking
it
about.
hasn't been
got,
busted. That it was busted.
Hey, for the
so long
record, I don't
ago
know
that
any of these
nobody
people or
gives a
recognize
shit.
their names.
I apologize. Seth.
No, that's fine. I don't want to be like nodding along. These people suck.
I got
for the record,
there was a situation.
I
Okay, all right, Chris. Well, Chris from the Rained Out Rantcast, brother, thank you so much for being here and contributing to this because you have great discernment. I appreciate the work you always do. You can catch him on AM Wake Up with Steve Pokanen, this fucking great show. You guys do it what, Monday through Thursday, right? 10 a.m.
Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. my time, which is Central Time until noon. Sometimes longer. It depends Sometimes we get some tips and then we'll dance, I guess, for a little longer.
Hell yeah, man.
Nah, it's usually Monday and Wednesday because I don't have to pick up my kid. So.
Well, awesome, man. Thank you for being here, brother. And we won't be going too much longer, I don't think, anyway. But
thanks for having me. I got to get in and get the kid to bed.
Cool, man. Peace out.
See y'all later.
Bye.
Yeah, we're jumping all over the place, and I know I'm getting a little heated, but I just see a lot of different sub communities being pushed slowly together, and things that were very, very fringe and very, very silly are now being sponsored on bigger levels. And now I'm just personally, and a lot of us are starting to see motive for it, to cover up a lot more simple truth about reality. And it's something to do with consciousness. Sure. There's a lot there that's mystified still. And our history is still very filled with mystery. But I do really feel like there's a huge problem going on with this. And it's not just grifting and clickbait. It's flat out widespread belief. And it's just planting flags here and there, because it's easier to say, okay, well, we don't know everything about the Nephilim, but let's just assume they have something to do with evil fuckers and they're part of some evil plan that's still going on. Okay, so that word, okay. And most conspiracy theorists and alternative thinkers will be like, all right, okay, I'll leave that open. Okay, cool. But there's the flag being planted. And go, okay, when I hear that word next week or next month from people that study it more than I do, apparently, I'm going to start to take their word for it, especially when, oh shit, they're on Joe Rogan or they're on this, they're on that. Because guess what? Those topics, mark my fucking words, Rogan's getting close. He had fucking ghost hunters on a few months ago, like 19-year-old ghost hunters making viral bullshit YouTube channels shit. So it's coming. And also, one last thing is that this ancient alien narrative that was just a goofy History Channel show, and it still is. It's always fun. Love it. I used to watch it and go, a lot of their excuses that they lead with aliens, I'm like, I think those were mushrooms. I think everybody's taking mushrooms. And I think that is closer to the truth. But like, I used to just replace it with mushrooms. Like, maybe ancient aliens isn't right, but something quote unquote alien was going on back then for sure. But yeah, a goofy show like that, in 2016, Bob Lazar alluded on Joe Rogan that, well, maybe one of these dig sites or one of these craft came from an archaeological dig site. The internet went nuts. And then slowly but surely, ever since 2016 on that JRE episode, that ancient alien idea has been slowly dripping into the new modern disclosure conversation among whistleblowers, bigger podcasts and military personnel, they're saying that more and more. Now, I'm not saying they're all complicit and lying and making something up directly, all these people. They might be seeing something and they're being led and pushed, and the whisper in the ear to what it is. And then they have people like fucking Dave and other blue alien visitation storytellers and, you know, the Corey Goods of the world fill in the rest of it. You know, like this is a plot that's being thickened and carried out, and it's grabbing the psychedelic community, the new age community, the religious, the traditional religious community. It's all a form, like, to me, it looks like a uniform thing happening. And maybe I'm just paranoid, but I see it happening in like every fucking subgroup. It's leading people that I would never have expected to start talking about spirit guides and shit. And I'm like, something is being obfuscated about consciousness and how simple and easy and freeing it is. Because I relate mostly to near-death experiencers from my psychedelic experiences. They come on my show, I can't stop having shivers because of how similar their fucking stories are. And their stories are, you just wake up. Or something along those lines. It's a freeing feeling. Every once in a while, there's a guy that gets the soul trap shit. I don't know.
I think
I've ranted long enough, though.
I think we're a bit naive if we don't think that the conspiracy realm and topics are any different from politics. Your interests, your beliefs, things that you enjoy are easily manipulated. And they can be used for nefarious purposes, whether it's just clickbait or whether it's to push someone else's story that may not necessarily believe in. Your interests can be weaponized very easily.
Absolutely.
It's
Absolutely.
Seen as a scene, whether it's a punk rock scene or the political scene or an alien scene, like you're still going to be dealing with social dynamics, incentive structures, stuff like that until you define those things, and then they don't really work on you as well anymore. And when people adopting so many wacky beliefs, it's like really all someone needs to get them to do is define the word belief, and then or persuasion or anything. You know, if you define the word persuasion, you become way less persuadable, like instant like a magic power, knowing what the word means. Same thing with belief. It's like, why do you choose to believe anything? You don't need to. You know what I mean? It's like you start thinking about the word belief, and you're like, and opinions and stuff. You're like, maybe I don't need this. I mean, Marcus Aurelius was like, you don't have to have opinions. He's like, I don't have opinions. He's like, how do you think I get anything done?
I had a friend of mine say, I believe in an afterlife of some kind. And we would get into debates all the time. And I don't not believe in one, but I don't know how to define it, you know? And he would say, I do it because it makes me feel better. And I'm like, that's the most honest thing right there. And that's totally fine. Like, that's fine to have, you know, but like,
operating assumption. If there's something important that you don't know about, you have to make an operating assumption. Is this real or simulation? Most people think it's real because they don't try to fly. You know what I mean? So when it comes to things you don't know that are crucial, you have to make an operating assumption. And one of those things is, will my life continue after I die? And that's going to dictate your behavior and your principles almost entirely.
For sure. And I think without a decent upbringing, or good guidance in either direction, a belief or a non-belief can lead into crazy, awful places, for sure.
Right. Yeah.
I think we see a lot of anti-God and anti-religious belief now, where I grew up very atheistic, very agnostic, and very against organized religion. But over time, I'm seeing so much more destructive force going on, not necessarily in general, but pushed by popular culture in the godless category, which is really weird, you know? And I'm not saying that, I'm saying a lot of weird things, I guess, but like, I grew up as kind of a hippie guy, didn't have Jesus or anything. I kind of looked at all the prophets as, okay, this is clearly, we're all kind of vibing in the same level or something like that. And eventually that view gets so wrapped up in like Satanism and like mocking the religious and stuff like that. And yeah, I just see it a lot.
Thought restriction, just
and it fuels the conspiracies.
Dogmatic thought restriction, like that thought is against dogma. Like, let's not even engage with that thought, you know?
Right, yeah.
It's bad.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's I think it's positive in general because, at least these kinds of conversations are starting to become more frequent. And once people hear about it once, they start like when you hear a new word, all of a sudden you're hearing it like everywhere you go. Like, so I think these ideas are going to propagate and the pendulum is going to swing. And also, I think that like clickbait will eventually dry up when it's exposed how many bots there are. The advertisers are going to be like, we're not going to pay for this anymore. And that's already started happening. So I think a lot of trends are going in a positive direction. And if people really want to be helpful and truthful, then they can, there's a big opportunity to buck the trends, which is what we need to do is literally buck the trending tab.
Hell yeah.
Make our own.
Amen. So we're going to wrap it up. We could go on and on. But yeah, Drew, any last words? Anything you want to wrap up with, Brandy?
No, I think it just comes down to, I think even if you don't have a belief system, that's your belief system. And when we all have some kind of a leaning towards something, and I don't think that really matters what that is, as long as you are a good person, you're not a dick. Essentially, that's what it comes down to. Don't be a dick.
Hell yeah.
That's it. And for me, the world and the universe is so big and so vast, I don't think we can really ever understand it. And I think personally, science, faith, religion, spirituality, whatever you want to call it, all coalesce into being the same thing. And I think that's the journey humanity's been on since the beginning of time, is trying to understand our place in whatever this thing is we call existence.
Hell yeah. I like that.
Totally agree.
Brandy, great seeing you. What do you have? What do you have for us? Anything to finish up with?
I just like a lot of people seriously just go to these places because they want to explore what they believe, and I mean belief is an opinion. It's just an opinion. So you're listening to other people's opinions that are going to try to shape your opinion, when in all actuality the only thing that you need is yourself. And when you have this fight or flight, they never teach you the other part of it. There's fight, there's flight, and then there's rest. You need to be in that resting period. Just like when they say, when you're lost, the best way to be found is to stop moving. Stop moving.
Yeah.
So when everything's getting too much and you don't know what to believe, then that means everything that you are listening to is crap.
There's noise.
You need to recenter and rest. And the answers will come to you. And everybody's got their own world. You're creating your own thing. So yes, everything is not going to be in your reality, and it's okay. But it's not okay to go out and lie to people and make them believe something just because you want to fatten up your wallet, or because you think it makes you look like something that you're not. And you're never going to be able to find that something that you're not, because you ain't yourself. So you're always going to live without.
Hell yeah. Well said. Well, yeah. I guess to sum it all up on my end, I just think I'm going to tighten up my tolerance, I guess, to bullshit in a way that I haven't before. And it may come off as a little bit hostile in a way. I'm not going to try to be hostile, but I really feel like we're about to hit a point in time where there's no going back in a certain way, where we're accepting concepts that are going to close the door on a lot of other things that may be closer to home. And I wonder if that's part of the nefarious goal, So I just hope people out there, if they take anything good away from this kind of intense conversation, I hope it's that discernment is king. And for those that are willing to venture outside the realms of normal consciousness and go to weird places, this place is pretty weird, and we don't have any answers, and the whole point of it is that we're not going to be able to ever put it into words anyway. And so leaning on trying to solidify non-material experience is a dangerous road, and I think that's a road that we've been led down for a very long time, in the same way that magic wands with fireworks coming out of them in Hollywood movies is what magic is, instead of sleight of hand or misdirection. It's how it's presented to us and that's hiding in plain sight. So with that, I love you guys. Thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate all the patience and the crazy rants and all the contributions you guys have made. Seth, tell the people where they can find you, man.
Yeah, my link tree is VBDC. I'm VBDC on YouTube. All my music videos are there. If you want to go directly to the music, you got to put in the whole thing, Venice Beach Dub Club, which is the actual name of the band. And I do Wednesday Ultra most weeks on Exertus's channel. He's a cool follow too.
Absolutely.
And that's about it. Check out the link tree and you can find everything right there. VBDC.
Awesome.
Thank you
man.
for having me on. This was great.
Hell yeah, man. I'll have you back too, just to get even more into some consciousness AI talk. I would love to, because we've kind of like brushed on it together on Woo Wednesdays before. And yeah, I've always wanted to kind of pick your brain on my own show. So it was great to have you here. And Brandy, you can be found at, what is it, Brandy Renee, or what is it, underscore or something like that? I'll put it in the...
Yeah, it's at AKA_ Brandy Renee.
Hell yeah. And Brandy, thank you as always. I always appreciate your perspective on these topics. And yeah, it's great to see you. It's been a while, and I'm glad we keep our chat going with everybody. It's good to keep in touch. Drew, coming all the way from a continent that doesn't even exist in some people's minds. It's not real. Australians are all made up. I heard Massachusetts is made up too. That's another conspiracy. I don't exist. So, but anyway, where can they find you, my friend?
You're Missing the Point podcast, MISSEN, on all the usual podcatchers, and on Twitter under @MissinThePoint.
Excellent, man. And I will say that I was recently able to tag you, I think, I don't know, a week ago, something like that, or I was looking for you. It happened. It was able to happen. But for the longest time, I have not been able to tag you in things or look you up directly unless I knew exactly what your tag was, because you were shadow banned as fuck. So I think maybe it's over, maybe it's not, but just so you were aware of it, you're causing some storms over in Australia. So I appreciate you very much, man.
No worries.
It's always good to talk to you, brother. So anyway, thanks for tuning in, and yeah, catch you next time.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, that's hysteria. Enough, I get the point.
You have meddled with the primal forces of nature. And you will atone.
What do we know? What do we know? If I know what we know, then I can tell you what we know, and if someone else knows, okay? I mean...